The sterile glow of City Hospital's hallways buzzed with frenetic energy. Machines beeped in a relentless rhythm. Gurneys squeaked as they raced through corridors, and the sharp voices of doctors and nurses cut through the air. It was a typical day in the trauma unit, where every second was a battle against time, and every decision carried the weight of life or death. In the midst of this chaos stood Serena Carter, a black nurse whose reputation for precision and calm under pressure had made her a cornerstone of the hospital's staff. Her hands moved with practiced grace as she prepared a tray of surgical instruments, her focus unbreakable despite the whirlwind around her. Dr. Marcus Baldwin, the hospital's star surgeon, loomed at the center of Operating Room 3. His reputation preceded him, a man of unparalleled skill, an Ivy League pedigree, and an arrogance that bordered on cruelty. His sharp blue eyes scanned the room, barking orders with a voice that demanded obedience. "Scalpel," he snapped, his tone clipped and impatient. The surgical team moved like a well-oiled machine, but when Serena stepped forward to assist, Baldwin's gaze hardened. "Step back, Nurse Carter," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "I don't need your help today." The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Serena's hands froze mid-motion, her eyes meeting Baldwin's for a brief moment. She was no stranger to his dismissals, but the sting never dulled. She had assisted in hundreds of surgeries, her expertise unquestioned by her peers, yet Baldwin treated her as if she were invisible. The other nurses exchanged uneasy glances, their discomfort evident. Serena swallowed her pride, her face a mask of professionalism, and stepped back. "Yes, doctor," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the humiliation. As she retreated to the corner of the room, Nurse Emily, a close colleague, leaned in and whispered, "He's out of line, Serena. You're better than half the surgeons here." Serena gave a small nod, her jaw tight. She didn't need the validation. She knew her worth. But Baldwin's prejudice was a constant hurdle, one she navigated with grace, but never without cost. Outside the operating room, the hospital hummed with its own secrets. City Hospital was a beacon of excellence, its walls lined with awards and its staff handpicked for their brilliance. But beneath the polished surface, tensions simmered. Rumors swirled of a power struggle among the hospital's leadership, with some whispering that Baldwin's unchecked arrogance was a liability. The hospital's chief administrator, Dr. Evelyn Harper, had been clashing with Baldwin over his behavior, threatening to curb his influence. Harper, a fierce advocate for equality, had taken a particular interest in Serena, recognizing her potential and quietly pushing for her promotion to a leadership role. But Baldwin's sway over the board made such changes difficult, and Harper's efforts were met with resistance. Unbeknownst to most, a more sinister threat lurked within the hospital's walls. A disgruntled former employee, Dr. Victor Crane, had been fired months earlier for unethical practices, rumors of falsified records, and dangerous shortcuts in the OR. Crane, once a rival to Baldwin, harbored a deep grudge against the hospital, particularly against Baldwin and anyone associated with him. His departure had been quiet, but his bitterness festered, and whispers of his return had begun to circulate among the staff. Some said he was plotting revenge, though no one knew how or when. As Serena left the OR, her shift nearing its end, she passed the pediatric wing, where she caught sight of Liam Baldwin, Dr. Baldwin's 10-year-old son. The boy was visiting his father, his bright eyes filled with admiration as he watched the hospital's controlled chaos. Liam was a frequent presence, often sneaking away from his nanny to explore the hospital, his curiosity boundless. Serena had always liked him. He was kind, untainted by his father's arrogance. "Hey, Liam," she said with a smile, crouching to his level. "You staying out of trouble?" Liam grinned, holding up a toy stethoscope. "I'm gonna be a doctor like Dad someday." Serena's smile faltered slightly, but she nodded. "You'll be a great one, Liam. Just make sure you're kind to your nurses." The boy tilted his head, confused, but nodded enthusiastically before running off. Back in the OR, Baldwin was finishing his procedure, oblivious to the storm brewing outside. His focus was razor-sharp, but his mind was elsewhere, on his reputation, his legacy, and the pressure to maintain his status as the hospital's untouchable star. He had no idea that his world was about to unravel. As the day wore on, a strange unease settled over the hospital. A maintenance worker reported a tampered lock on a storage room containing critical medical supplies, and a nurse noticed an unusual discrepancy in the inventory of sedatives. The incidents were minor, easily dismissed, but they set the staff on edge. Serena, ever observant, noted the irregularities but kept her thoughts to herself. She had learned long ago to trust her instincts, and something felt off. That evening, as Serena prepared to leave, she received a cryptic message on her phone. "Watch your back. He's not done." The number was blocked, and a chill ran down her spine. She glanced around the empty locker room, her heart pounding. Was this about Baldwin? Or something else entirely? She shook off the unease, chalking it up to exhaustion, but the message lingered in her mind. Meanwhile, Dr. Baldwin was in his office, reviewing charts, when he received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was low, menacing. "You think you're untouchable, Marcus? You'll pay for what you did." The line went dead before Baldwin could respond. His face paled, but he dismissed it as a prank. He had enemies, yes, but he was Dr. Marcus Baldwin. No one could touch him. As night fell, the hospital's lights flickered briefly, unnoticed by most. In the shadows, a figure moved silently through the service corridors, their steps deliberate. The stage was set for chaos, and Serena, Baldwin, and the entire hospital were about to be tested in ways they could never have imagined. The hospital's night shift was quieter, but the air was thick with tension. Serena, unable to shake the cryptic message, had stayed late to cover for a colleague. She moved through the trauma unit, checking charts and restocking supplies, her mind racing. The tampered lock and missing sedatives gnawed at her. She wasn't one for paranoia, but her years in the high-stakes environment of City Hospital had honed her instincts. Something was wrong. In the administrative wing, Dr. Harper was burning the midnight oil, poring over reports of the hospital's recent incidents. The tampered lock wasn't an isolated event. There had been other subtle signs of sabotage: a malfunctioning ventilator, a mislabeled medication batch. Harper suspected an inside job, someone with intimate knowledge of the hospital's operations. Her thoughts turned to Victor Crane, the disgraced surgeon whose firing she had overseen. Could he be behind this? She made a mental note to alert security, but before she could act, the hospital's alarms blared to life. Code Blue, Trauma Unit. The loudspeaker's urgency sent a jolt through the hospital. Serena dropped her clipboard and sprinted toward the ER, her heart pounding. As she rounded the corner, she saw paramedics rushing a gurney through the doors. The patient was small, pale, and covered in blood, Liam Baldwin. Serena's breath caught in her throat. The boy's face was barely recognizable, his body limp, his clothes torn from a car accident on his way home from a school event. The trauma unit erupted into controlled chaos. Nurses shouted vitals, doctors scrambled for equipment, and the heart monitor's weak beeps filled the air. Serena's training kicked in, overriding her shock. "Get me an ultrasound," she barked, her voice cutting through the noise. She pressed her stethoscope to Liam's chest. His heartbeat was faint, his blood pressure dangerously low. "BP 70/40, a nurse called out. Serena's jaw clenched. "He's bleeding internally. Page the OR now." As the team prepared to move Liam, Serena's mind raced. Dr. Baldwin was in surgery, unreachable, and the on-call surgeon was dealing with another critical case. The weight of the moment settled on her shoulders. She knew the procedure needed a complex technique to stop internal hemorrhaging, but it required precision only a handful of professionals in the hospital could execute, and she was one of them. But there was another problem. As the team wheeled Liam toward the OR, a nurse pulled Serena aside, her face pale. "The surgical kits, they're missing critical tools. Someone's been in the supply room." Serena's blood ran cold. The tampered lock, the missing sedatives, the cryptic message, it was all connected. Someone was sabotaging the hospital, and Liam's life was caught in the crossfire. In the OR, Serena took charge, her hands steady despite the chaos. The ultrasound confirmed a ruptured liver, and time was running out. "We're doing this now," she said, her voice unwavering. The nurses nodded, trusting her implicitly. But as she began the procedure, the lights flickered again, and the heart monitor glitched, its readings erratic. Serena's eyes narrowed. "Check the backup generator," she ordered a tech. "Something's messing with the system." Miles away, in a dimly lit apartment, Victor Crane sat hunched over a laptop, his fingers flying across the keys. He had hacked into the hospital's electrical grid. a skill he'd picked up during his darker days. His plan was simple: disrupt the hospital, expose Baldwin's incompetence, and ruin the institution that had cast him out. Liam's accident was an unexpected opportunity, a cruel twist of fate that Crane intended to exploit. He didn't care about collateral damage. He wanted Baldwin to suffer. Back in the OR, Serena worked with laser focus, her hands moving with the precision of a master surgeon. The missing tools forced her to improvise, using older instruments from a backup kit. Every second was a gamble, but she refused to falter. Liam's life depended on her. Dr. Baldwin, finally alerted to the emergency, burst into the OR, his face ashen. The sight of his son on the table, surrounded by blood and machines, nearly broke him. His eyes locked onto Serena, who was leading the procedure with a calm authority he had never acknowledged. "What's happening?" he stammered, his voice raw. "Ruptured liver," Serena replied without looking up. "I'm stopping the bleeding. Stay back." Her tone was firm, leaving no room for argument. Baldwin staggered, his world collapsing. The woman he had dismissed countless times was now his son's only hope. As Serena worked, the hospital's systems continued to falter. The backup generator failed, plunging the OR into darkness for a terrifying moment before emergency lights kicked in. Serena didn't flinch, her hands guided by muscle memory and instinct. But the glitches were no accident. Crane's interference was escalating, and the hospital was on the brink of collapse. The OR was a battlefield, with Serena as its commander. Liam's condition stabilized briefly, but the hospital's systems were under attack. The flickering lights, glitching monitors, and missing supplies were no coincidence. Serena's mind raced as she sutured Liam's liver, her hands steady despite the chaos. She had saved countless lives, but this was different, this was personal, and the stakes were higher than ever. Outside the OR, Dr. Harper was piecing together the puzzle. Security footage revealed a shadowy figure tampering with the supply room, and IT reported unauthorized access to the hospital's network. Harper's worst fears were confirmed. Victor Crane was back, and he was waging a silent war against City Hospital. She alerted security, but Crane's knowledge of the hospital's layout made him a ghost, always one step ahead. In the OR, Baldwin stood frozen, watching Serena work. His arrogance had crumbled, replaced by a raw, desperate fear. He tried to speak, to offer assistance, but Serena's sharp no stopped him cold. For the first time, he was powerless, forced to trust the woman he had spent years undermining. The irony was excruciating, but his shame was overshadowed by a single thought: "Please, save my son." As Serena finished the procedure, the heart monitor stabilized, and Liam's vitals improved. She exhaled, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "He's going to make it," she said, her voice steady but soft. The nurses let out a collective breath, their admiration for Serena palpable. But the victory was short-lived. The hospital's alarms blared again, this time a fire alarm. Smoke began to seep into the corridors, and panic spread like wildfire. Crane had escalated his plan. Using his access to the hospital's systems, he had triggered a small explosion in a storage room, igniting flammable medical supplies. The fire was contained, but the smoke was spreading, threatening to overwhelm the ventilation system. Patients were evacuated, and the staff scrambled to maintain order. Serena, still in the OR, realized the danger wasn't over. "We need to move Liam to a secure ward," she ordered. Now, as the team prepared to transfer Liam, Baldwin grabbed Serena's arm, his eyes wild with gratitude and fear. "Serena, I was wrong. Please, save him." Serena met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "I already did, doctor," she said, pulling her arm free. "Now let me do my job." The hospital descended into chaos as the fire spread. Security teams worked to contain the blaze, but Crane's sabotage had crippled their efforts. He had disabled sprinklers and locked key exits, trapping staff and patients in certain wings. Serena, now leading Liam's transfer, navigated the smoke-filled corridors with a small team, her instincts guiding her. She had trained for emergencies, but this was something else, a deliberate attack. In a darkened control room, Crane watched the chaos unfold via hacked security feeds. His plan wasn't just to disrupt, it was to destroy. He had planted a second device, a timed explosive hidden in the hospital's basement, set to detonate in 1 hour. If Baldwin lost his son, if the hospital crumbled, Crane would have his revenge. Serena, unaware of the full extent of Crane's plan, focused on keeping Liam stable. As they reached the pediatric ICU, she noticed a strange smell, chemical, acrid. Her instincts screamed danger. "Check the vents," she told a nurse. "Something's wrong." The nurse returned, her face pale. The ventilation system, it's pumping some kind of gas. Serena's heart sank. This was no accident. She radioed security, her voice urgent. We've got a chemical leak in the ICU. Evacuate the floor and get hazmat down here. The team moved quickly, but Serena stayed with Liam, refusing to leave his side. She adjusted his oxygen mask, her hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of responsibility. Baldwin, now in the ICU, was a shadow of his former self. The man who once commanded every room was reduced to a father clinging to hope. He watched Serena work, her every move a testament to the skill he had refused to see. I don't deserve this, he whispered, more to himself than to her. Serena didn't respond. She didn't have time for his guilt. As the hospital fought to contain the fire and gas leak, Harper uncovered Crane's endgame. A maintenance worker found the explosive device in the basement, its timer ticking down. Harper's voice crackled over the radio. We've got a bomb. Everyone, stay calm, but prepare for evacuation. The words sent a chill through the hospital. Serena, still with Liam, realized the true scope of the danger. Crane wasn't just targeting Baldwin, he was targeting them all. The hospital was a war zone. Smoke curled through the corridors, alarms wailed, and the staff fought to maintain order as patients were evacuated. Serena, in the pediatric ICU, worked to stabilize Liam while coordinating with the team to move other vulnerable patients. The chemical leak had been contained, but the bomb in the basement loomed like a death sentence. With less than 30 minutes until detonation, the hospital was running out of time. Dr. Harper took charge of the crisis, working with security to locate Crane. The former surgeon had vanished, but his digital fingerprints were everywhere, hacked systems, disabled safety protocols, and now a bomb. Harper's team traced his signal to an abandoned wing of the hospital, a section under renovation. She radioed Serena. We think Crane's still here. Be careful, he's dangerous. Serena's mind raced. She couldn't leave Liam, but she also couldn't ignore the threat. She turned to Nurse Emily, who had become her right hand. Stay with Liam. Keep him stable. I'm going to find Harper. Emily nodded, her eyes wide with fear but resolute. Serena grabbed a flashlight and a medical kit, her determination overriding her exhaustion. As she moved through the darkened corridors, the hospital felt like a labyrinth. The smoke was thicker now, and the flickering emergency lights cast eerie shadows. Serena's heart pounded, but she pushed forward, her training keeping her focused. She reached the abandoned wing, where Harper and a small security team were closing in on Crane's location. Inside a gutted operating room, Crane stood over a makeshift control panel, his face illuminated by the glow of a laptop. He was muttering to himself, his obsession with revenge consuming him. Baldwin will pay. They all will. Serena crept closer, her footsteps silent. She caught Harper's eye, and the administrator signaled for her to stay back. But before they could act, Crane turned, his eyes wild. You? He snarled, recognizing Serena. You're one of Baldwin's pawns, aren't you? He lunged, pulling a knife from his belt. Serena dodged, her reflexes sharp, but Crane was desperate. The security team moved in, but Crane activated a secondary device, a gas canister rigged to release a toxic cloud. If I go down, you all go with me, he screamed. Serena tackled Crane, knocking the knife from his hand. The canister hissed, and gas began to fill the room. Harper shouted for the team to retreat, but Serena stayed, pinning Crane to the ground. Where's the bomb? She demanded, her voice fierce. Crane laughed, his eyes gleaming with madness. You'll never find it in time. Harper radioed for backup, but the gas was spreading fast. Serena dragged Crane to a safer area, her lungs burning. She didn't know how to disarm a bomb, but she knew someone who might. She radioed Baldwin, who had stayed with Liam in the ICU. Marcus, we need you. Crane's got a bomb in the basement, and we're running out of time. Baldwin's voice crackled through the radio, raw with emotion. I'm coming. He left Liam in Emily's care and sprinted to the abandoned wing, his surgical precision now focused on a different kind of challenge. When he arrived, he found Serena restraining Crane, the gas canister neutralized but the bomb still ticking. Baldwin, Harper, and Serena worked together, their differences forgotten in the face of the crisis. Crane, now subdued, refused to talk, but Baldwin's knowledge of the hospital's infrastructure helped them locate the bomb. With minutes to spare, a bomb squad arrived, guided by Serena's quick thinking and Baldwin's expertise. The device was disarmed, and the hospital let out a collective sigh of relief. But the danger wasn't over. Crane's sabotage had weakened the hospital's systems, and the fire was still burning in another wing. Serena returned to the ICU, where Liam was stable but not out of the woods. She checked his vitals, her hands steady despite the ordeal. Baldwin followed, his face etched with gratitude and shame. "Serena," he said, his voice breaking. "I don't know how to thank you." Serena met his gaze, her expression calm but firm. "You don't have to thank me, doctor. I did what I was trained to do." Her words carried a weight that Baldwin felt deep in his chest. She had saved his son, saved the hospital, and faced a madman, all without hesitation. The hospital emerged from the night's chaos battered, but standing. The fire was extinguished, Crane was in custody, and the bomb threat was neutralized. Patients were returning to their rooms, and the staff worked tirelessly to restore order. Serena, exhausted but resolute, stayed by Liam's side, ensuring his recovery. The boy's condition was improving, his small hand gripping hers as he stirred. Dr. Baldwin, now a changed man, called an emergency meeting the next morning. The conference room was packed, the staff buzzing with anticipation. Baldwin stood at the front, his usual arrogance gone. He looked out at the faces of his colleagues, his eyes lingering on Serena. "I've made mistakes," he began, his voice steady but humble. "I've let my pride blind me to the talent and dedication of those around me." He turned to Serena, his gaze unwavering. "Nurse Carter saved my son's life last night. She saved this hospital. And I owe her more than an apology, I owe her my respect." The room erupted in applause, but Serena remained stoic. Baldwin continued, announcing her promotion to a senior leadership role, a position that would give her the authority she had long deserved. He extended his hand, and Serena shook it, their eyes meeting in a moment of mutual understanding. The hospital had changed, and so had Baldwin. In the days that followed, the staff began to question their own biases, inspired by Serena's courage and Baldwin's transformation. Harper launched an investigation into the hospital's culture, determined to root out prejudice and ensure equality. Crane's actions had exposed the vulnerabilities in the system, but they had also united the staff in a way no one could have predicted. Serena, as always, focused on her work. She didn't need the applause or the promotion to know her worth. She had faced bias, danger, and sabotage, and she had emerged stronger. Liam's recovery was her reward, and Baldwin's apology was a step toward a better future. As the hospital rebuilt, Baldwin visited Serena in the break room one quiet evening. "I was wrong about so many things," he said, his voice soft. "But I'm learning, and I want to be better for Liam, for this hospital, for you." Serena nodded, a small smile breaking through her fatigue. "That's all anyone can do, Marcus. Keep learning." It was a simple moment, but it marked a turning point. The hospital wasn't perfect, but it was healing inside and out.